Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. What a great 2 days, right? It's been fantastic. Thank you for closing with us. We so appreciate it today. So, we want to first off just thank all of you. You all have been fantastic. There's been so much support around the book and around us, and we really, really appreciate it. Many of us have been part of the Turn Zero community for years, and we're really grateful that we're here today. So thank you. So, want to talk a little bit about how we all kind of started this journey a little bit. So, all of us have been, we've been writing blogs. We've been I guess maybe, I don't want to call it LinkedIn influencers, if that's a thing. We all just write a lot of content and we connect with a lot of people, and, we've all been really, really passionate about our space. And I really wanted to create a resource that could be used by many people. I'm Swati Garg. If you don't know me, I'm the founder and CEO of Melo Associates and the co-founder of CUSP, a local CS community. And we focus on revenue recruitment with a big focus in CS. And so I've talked to thousands of people and seen a lot of different patterns, and I answer a lot of the same questions. So I wanted to kind of create a resource that people can use again and again and again. I never wanted to do it alone. So once I kind of decided that the book was the right way to do it, I felt really good about the topics that I had in mind and who I wanted to work with. I chose every single one of these ladies. I handpicked every one of these ladies, and they all said yes. It was literally within a week of time. I got every single person on a phone call. They said yes, and we got on our first call, which really shows kind of the enthusiasm, the energy around this project. And the funny thing was, I didn't really ask anybody if they wanted to write a book. I was like, I've seen you guys all write, and I've seen you all, be around the community. And I was like, we can do this. No idea what really we signed up for. If you ever want to write a book and you want to talk about it, let us know. It is quite the journey. In my mind, this was like a 6-month project. It took 22 months. And the reason I say that, and I keep emphasizing the 22 months, is every single thing in this book has been a consensus or a majority. Every decision, every color, every layout, every font, every single thing. And that sounds like a lot, and it was, I'm not gonna lie, but it really made the quality of the book so much better. My vision truly was to make sure that we showed both sides. What I noticed was the candidates didn't really always understand the hiring manager perspective, and sometimes hiring managers forgot what it felt like to be a candidate if they haven't interviewed in a while. And so we were very deliberate about having every section be divided into 2, and very deliberate on how we wrote the book. And we really hope that you all enjoy it, use it as a guide, use it as an evergreen resource. The fundamentals are there, and we think that it'll last a long time. So thank you. We want to take a moment to just introduce all of ourselves. I think you know some of us. Like I said, I don't know if you know all of us, but we want to do it in a little bit of a unique way. We're all going to be kind of sharing our name and title and all of that, and then we're going to be answering one question. The question is going to be, when it comes to leadership, what do you bring to the table that's uniquely you? And that'll just give you a little glimpse of how we all operate. And so I'll go first. I'm Swati Garg, founder and CEO of Melo Associates. I wrote section 1 on recruitment and job search. And my answer to this question is, I get things started and I keep people accountable.
Yeah, she does.
Mic drop. Hi, everyone. I'm Parul Bhandari. I'm the CEO of CustomerXSuccess and the founder of South Asian Success. And I wrote section 2, which is all about titles and salaries in CS. Excited to talk about it. I wanted to shout out Turn Zero. I'm a very early Turn Zero customer back in 2016. So shout out to the team. They've been awesome for everything they've done for us. What makes me uniquely me, or what is my unique leadership style? I feel that I have the ability to help people realize their true passions and find their fullest selves. So yes, we come to work as a CSM, but we have many facets of our life, and I love helping people find those facets of their life so that they can really fully create, fully participate, and fully engage.
That's lovely. Hi, Elizabeth Blass. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Karbon. I wrote section 3 of the book. It's all about career progression. Unique to my leadership style, I would say I bring a light-hearted approach to chaos, so it kind of calms people down so they can bring their best self to the actual problem solving.
I'm Ejieme Eromosele. I'm VP of Customer Growth at Quig, and I'm also the founder of Success in Black. I wrote section 4, which is all about demystifying the concept of fit when it comes to positioning yourself as a candidate and also hiring folks as well. And the leadership quality that is uniquely me is I get to the so what. I really help my teams understand what the business outcome is, simplify complexity so that we can deliver, and also focus on revenue growth for our company.
Hi, everybody. I am Julie Fox. I'm the Global Director of Customer Success with Sin7. And my section 5, is all about leaning into community, networking, and branding. And the leadership style that is uniquely me, I think we can all admit that customer success is kind of hard. We deal with a lot of hard things. And so I bring in a layer of mindset coaching and gratitude practice into how I lead my team.
My name is Kristen here, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Success League. We're a global customer success and training company. And my section is section 6, training. And I can see several of you that came to my session this afternoon, so you've heard some of this already. But the leadership quality that I bring to the table is creativity. And I think that helps me in a couple ways. It helps me connect with people one-on-one really well. And it also helps me solve problems, and that's great when you run a consulting firm. We want to tell you a little bit more about why we wrote this book.
I'm gonna do this carefully. So, thank you. So what did we set out to impact? When we wrote this book, we knew the most important thing was the problem to solve, which is the problem of business value. The smartest businesses, they understand that talent is essential. They understand that talent, when handled correctly, when trained and resourced, can save you money. So we really wanted to set out and say, hey businesses, if you need to learn about this, we're gonna help you achieve business value through talent.
All right, Ejieme and I are gonna take this next one. So we really set out to explore 6 particular challenges that I think most people in customer success can relate to. So starting with recruitment, who here has ever posted for a job when you weren't exactly sure what you were looking for? I wasn't sure how honest people were going to be. Okay. And how do we think we're going to find the best person if we haven't even thought through exactly what that process should be and who we need for that role, right? There's that old saying of if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. That's really true for the hiring that we do in CS. And then recruitment, kind of the next step there that Parul will be talking about is titles and roles are inconsistent. Who here has ever had someone, it doesn't have to be you, but had someone get really creative with a job title? I heard Director of Customer Happiness the other day. Hopefully that no one here has that. And then career paths are unclear or undocumented or outdated. There's so many versions of that, but without a documented career path, you don't know how to get to the next level. You can be stuck in one place for a long time. You could burn out. I mean, there's so many reasons why career pathing, which I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes because that's my section. But I'll let you talk about some of the other challenges.
Yeah. Also, by show of hands, how many people have heard, oh, she's not a great fit for that role? And also by show of hands, who knew what that actually meant? Right? So when fit is misunderstood, we're hiring people, we're bringing them on board, but we're not setting them up for success. So my section is all about how do we make sure that we have clarity in what we mean by fit. And then Julie's section is all about communities. I mean, we are all here. I think most of us are part of this amazing customer success community. But if you're not leveraging that, if you're not bringing best practices and knowledge sharing amongst different sizes and stages of businesses, you're limiting your ability to get ahead. And then finally, training. Always undervalued, always an afterthought. And so how do we expect our teams to excel if we're not giving them the right platform to do so? So Kristen's section is all about how to think thoughtfully and proactively about building training and enablement that makes your CS teams truly successful.
Thank you. So every one of us on this stage has lived these pain points, whether that's inconsistent titles, unclear career paths, or misunderstood fit, recruitment without structure. We've all lived it. And we've all seen great CS professionals that were undervalued or overlooked. So instead of just talking about it, we wrote a book about it and set out to fix this together. Each of us tackled a different piece of the puzzle. So as we discussed, we all have different sections that we've been able to provide our thoughts on. Everything from recruitment to training, from clarifying roles to building career paths. And that's how the Customer Success Talent Playbook came to exist.
So we really structured this book to be as useful as possible for everybody. What we did was we each wrote a chapter in our section from the employee's perspective, and we wrote a chapter from a hiring manager's perspective. And what we hope this does is make this really modular so that when you get this book, you can really go straight to the chapter that's relevant to you. And we think that this is going to make it really useful and evergreen for you so that you can pick it up now and take away something from it and pick it up in 3 years and choose something different to take a look at. And so we really wanted to make this as useful as possible. Our hope is that this modular approach is really going to help you now and well into the future. So at this point, what we want to do is really talk you through each of our sections of the book so that you get a little taste test of what you're going to read.
Okay, I'm back on. So obviously we all introduced ourselves a little bit, and I kind of want to just go back a little bit in my journey. So before I started Melo Associates, I was actually started my career in career services in like undergrad and college, and then got my master's in human resources, and then did organization development and performance management before I got into recruitment. And the reason I mention that is because, granted, it was all HR, but I was able to change industries 4 times at a very young age, very early on in my career. And I didn't realize how difficult that is for other people because I had a very clear process. And I think that's why I've always just been so passionate about the job search process. I love talking about getting a job or interviews or resumes. And I know that's like, so people hate talking about it, but I like light up. Like, I'm like, yeah, like, let me help you. Let me talk about it right now. And I realized that was like, kind of like a unique quality that I built over time that I didn't really try to build. And so I think when I jumped into recruitment, it was just so natural for me to like start coaching and answering these questions that I realized were patterns, right? Like I mentioned, there were so many patterns that I kept seeing. And I recently saw a stat that said 2% of applicants actually make it to like the interview, right? And that's crazy. That's a very low number. And what I noticed from that stat was that a lot of, and like going and connecting that to like all of the conversations I've had, a lot of people just don't do the prep work, right? So in my section, we talk about like the candidate perspective and the employer perspective, the employee and employer perspective. And in the employer candidate perspective, really a lot of what I talk about is like the prep work and how to set yourself up for success before you apply, before you leverage your network, before you do all these wonderful things that the other sections talk about, because you really need to do a lot of prep work. I'm so passionate about it, and I talk about it, and I answer the same questions over and over again. So I think that being able to put that all in a book was really amazing. On the flip side, I recently actually read a story that an entertainment company in the UK found that 18% of their rejected candidates were existing or potential customers. And after they analyzed that data, they discovered the bad candidate experience cost them $5.5 million annually in lost revenue. So, I mean, that's crazy. That's revenue that we're not even talking about on the talent side, right? So they responded by redesigning their candidate experience, creating more empathy in the process, and really trying to create advocates for anyone that went through the job search process, saving them a lot of money, right? And that kind of entails to our section, right? Like my section about the hiring manager. So I really talk about, I've been saying I really talk about in my section a lot about how to create a positive candidate experience and how to make sure like you're hiring for the right role, right? So really the things, the key takeaways from my section are really how to get the job search right, how to advocate for yourself from the job search perspective and from the hiring manager perspective, how to create a positive candidate experience, and how to hire the right role and really just put your best foot forward as a company. So I really hope you get a lot out of it, and I'd love to answer any questions later too.
Hi, everyone. So I mentioned that I started CustomerXSuccess recently, and I don't know if I mentioned it, but I did start my company recently. Before that, I was a CS leader, and probably like many people in the room who, if you did this job 10 years ago, there weren't a lot of resources. So I, like many people, kind of figured it out. I think there was Nick's book that I did read back then, and scoured the internet for things. We luckily landed on the right department title, Customer Success, but we did things not right all the way. And so my chapter does dive into that. My section is about clarifying expectations, right? And titles and salary, not the sexiest subject matter for everybody, but what I feel like, I did a session for Swati at Melo Associates, and when I started talking about it, I started realizing it is so important, right? So let's talk about titles, right? How we are called, whether it's a name, whether it's a title, right? It really tells the world internally and externally who we are. So how we are called is so important. And when companies sort of creatively title, I had a user delight manager role that I was recently helping with staffing. I was like, okay, what is this? What is that? What's the message it's sending, right? Internally, what are my responsibilities? Externally, what are my responsibilities? So we really talk about in this chapter, what I really talk about is why the process of titling, it probably started with a little bit of creativity and other kind of methods, but why it does need to change. And we can use data, and we can even use tools like our favorite AI chatbot to help us be a little bit better. So I set out to uncover the gaps in customer success expectation setting at the talent level. I'll talk a little bit more about salaries in a minute here. Let's go back to the story, right? I got it wrong the first time, and I bet there are people in this room that have got it wrong before too. So I was reading a study, and there was a report by Spherion that said 42% of employees think they are mistitled. And that's across the broad US job market. So we are not alone in customer success, but that doesn't mean that we should just keep doing it wrong, right? If we want to raise the value of our teams, we can't afford to misclassify them, right? In the organization, through salary, through other methods, like we have to get it right. It's the internal signal we send to our teams, to our boards, to our co-collaborators. And we also signal the market. So does anyone here work at a company where you are under contract to stay there forever? I didn't think so. Most companies have at-will employment, meaning you can leave when you want and they can let you go when they want. And so if you are ever trying to get the next job, the title matters. Right? So that's kind of where I found, wow, I'm really, really kind of passionate about this topic. Once we design jobs that have clear goals and clear objectives, it does not have to be a perfect job description every single time, but we give you a guideline in the book that Swati and I collaborated on of a job description, and we have templates and resources to help you get across the finish line in a more intentional manner, right? So AI is here. We know it. We heard it, and we heard the awesome things that Turn Zero is delivering, and many companies are investing heavily. So AI is taking the menial work that we all have done for years and getting a lot of credit for it. Let's think about that. AI has a title, and it's valued in the industry. CSMs may not feel that same value every single day. So if we want to compete, we have to remember that talent is going to lead the way, right? AI can't build the trust. I mean, some people do have good relationships with ChatGPT, and I'm sure it's wonderful, but I don't think AI can build trust with your customers in the same way. AI can't go visit them at their site, right? AI cannot necessarily help you guarantee and drive revenue, right? And AI is only as good as the data you pump in. So if your company's data is a little bit messy, your AI chatbot's also not going to be as perfect. I recently did a workshop, and it was focused on revenue skills for CSMs. And what I thought about is the only people that are going to learn this skill that I'm talking about in this workshop are CSMs that are empowered to do so. And titles and salary are the first step to being empowered, to really understanding your place, right? All right, I'm gonna give you guys a little glimpse into my background because Swati also has an HR background. I worked in HR for a couple of years at some very large companies. And one of my first projects was actually a salary survey. So maybe not something many people are exposed to as CS leaders, but I was lucky enough to do one. I was working at a large organization that had mistitled a group of employees, and because of that mistitling, they were vastly underpaid. We actually went to this place, I don't remember what it's called, it's like a library of salaries, and we looked at and actually opened books and found salaries and retitled them, restructured them, and brought them the value that they deserved in that organization. What do you think that organization gained? You don't have to answer. Retention, right? Those employees were disgruntled. They knew they were being undervalued, and they were ready to leave. That employer gained retention, and retention saves you a lot of money. So years later, I didn't think I would run into this in my CS life, but I did. And the first time, I already told you guys, I did it wrong, right? So now, every time I walk into a new team, right now I'm acting as a fractional leader, literally the first thing I do when they say we want to hire, I create a quick progress plan. I now have great tools and resources to help me do it very quickly. But I create a quick progress plan. I actually map out salaries and I do quick research, whatever is available, right? You got our friends at G2, you got Glassdoor, you got your ChatGPT, your other, chat of choice. And I put together what I think are meaningful representations for the group that's to come. So I encourage you, as you look into this chapter, that you take some time to just be intentional. The more we are intentional as CS leaders, the more we're gonna create value for our functions. All right, I'm going to pass now the baton to Elizabeth, who's going to talk about the importance of progression plans. Okay.
By the way, I love looking out and seeing people in sunglasses. You're like the coolest audience
so
ever. Cool. All right, actually, I don't need that, so I'll hand that to you. All right, so fun to be with you today, first of all. If you recall, I have section 3. So it's the section that is all about career progression. So when I was writing my chapters, I thought a lot about the importance of owning the journey. Someone very wise said, no one will ever care more about your career than you. But if you're fortunate, you may have a manager that comes along that makes a really impactful impact, I guess, to help me out here, to your career. So I had a manager like that in my early career. I had a manager that came to me one day and said, wanted to make sure that I knew that there was an open supervisor position and asked if I had considered applying for it. It blew my mind. I mean, there was no world in which I had considered applying for a supervisor position. She saw something in me that at that age, I just had no idea was there. And I applied for that role, and I got it. And that really started my lifelong love of leadership. I'm so grateful to her. I mean, managers, you may be the most important person in someone's career. I was very fortunate. I started my career at MCI, later Verizon, and I had the most incredible female leaders all the way up my chain. So manager, senior manager, director, VP. I didn't have to wonder what was possible because I could see it. It was my everyday. I was able to work my way up. I didn't even know that was special. I do now. When I was writing my chapters, I reflected on this a lot, and I had to realize that I was incredibly lucky. I had mentors and sponsors, female and male, that opened doors for me. And I wish that was just a common experience, but it's really not. They say that some of the most important decisions about your career will be made when you're not in the room. So all the more reason to seek out those sponsors and mentors. You may have to seek them out, but the good news is they're out there and they can make a meaningful difference in your career. So, the system is not always working in our favor. There was a study done in 2024 that showed that women were 16% less likely to get an executive promotion compared to men. And that's when controlling for, I see heads nodding, that's when controlling for experience, education, and function. That's not about capability. That's bias. Bias exists in the system. But if we own our journey, we can impact that. Every time we tell our story, advocate for ourselves, prepare for that next role. Every time we mentor or sponsor or open a door for someone else, we can impact that statistic in real time. So my part of the book is not really meant to be read all at once. You certainly can. It's a lot. It goes through the most common roles in CS. So it starts and it goes through career paths for individual contributors, then it goes through managers, and then it goes through executives. There's even a career path for people that maybe don't want to manage other people. But it's laid out like this. It gives you the skills and traits that you'll need to get the role. Then it gives you the skills that you can expect to kind of collect as you're on the job, as you're in the role. And then it gives you suggested activities for growth. So what can you do to try to achieve that next role? It's really meant to be a resource that you'll come back to at various points in your career, and I hope that you do. So for candidates in the room or emerging leaders, your responsibility really is to own your journey. Ask for feedback. Seek out those stretch assignments. Write down your wins. Write down your goals, or actually better yet, speak your goals out loud. If you're already a manager or a leader, your responsibility is to remember the power that you have. You might be the most impactful person in someone's entire career. So the good news is many companies are starting to build career tracks and spending more time on career progression. But often they get outdated or they're just too generic. So the good news is I've done the work for you in the book. You can take it, you can make adjustments, you can implement it. It's all there for you. And it's great because that structure is there. The structure creates visibility, and the visibility creates opportunity. So for those of you who are aspiring to leadership, I would say that journey is not linear. It's not even always fair. But if you own your journey, you really can go out and make some bold choices in your career. And if you're able to step up to that next level, be sure that you reach back and pull someone else up with you. So now I'll pass it off to Ejieme. She's going to talk to us a little bit about that structure that can really support career growth. Ejieme.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So this topic for me was quite personal. I am a Black woman, can you tell? I'm an immigrant to this country. I was born in Nigeria. And I have a name, thank you, and I have a name like Ejieme Eromosele. People are always like, what is that? And so I didn't always feel like I fit in growing up. And so when I, became an executive, I was like, oh, this feels comfortable as the only Black woman in the room, as the only Black person in the room, as the only woman in the room. And so for me, writing this chapter really hit home. And so fit is something that is often misconstrued. And so I really wanted to create something that people could use, both again from the candidate lens and the hiring lens, so that we can make sure that we're building truly inclusive teams. Because inclusivity is not something that's a nice to have. There was a McKinsey report and study a few years ago. I'm sure some of you have seen it, read it, heard the statistics. But organizations that have more diverse teams, especially at the leadership level, have a 35% higher profitability. So this isn't a nice to have. It's not cute. It's not, something that like we can post about. It's actually a business focus and a business imperative. I transitioned into customer success, never having done it before, kind of, right? I think we all kind of have flavors of this, right? Like, how do you transition into customer success, right? So I was at the time transitioning from running the customer experience organization at the New York Times. And I was in my first CS role. We were Series A startup in New York, about 40 or so people. The CS team was actually going through a reimagining. So I came in, we needed to kind of clean up shop a little bit and hire new people. And so I took the skills that I had been trained in and said, okay, I know how to hire people. But what I didn't realize is that when we talk about fit and when we talk about hiring, it's not just the skills that are required for the role. Context matters. And so I had never worked for an early stage startup. I had never worked for a technology company. And so I mishired initially, right? And it's not that I didn't have talented people that I brought into the room. They were very talented, right? They had all the skills. Their resumes were off the chart. But the context in which they were hired into didn't allow them to thrive. And so when I wrote the chapter or the section with 2 chapters about fit, I wanted to give people something that they could use to make sure that they weren't mishiring. And also from the candidate perspective, to ensure that we actually have the ability to have agency. Look, I understand if you've been looking for a job for a while, it's tough. You're like, sometimes you may just need to land the next role. But what I wanted to impart with candidates is that you have agency in the process. And what that means is by understanding the 3 dimensions of fit. So the first is around the skills and the competencies required to do that job, right? What is a job to be done? But then the next level, which I think a lot of people don't keep in mind, is the maturity of the CS organization. Are we talking about an organization that is just building from scratch and starting things up, have limited process? Or are we talking about an organization that has thousands of CSMs already, right? So the context of the maturity of the CS organization really matters. And then at the company level, are we looking at hiring for talent that is part of an organization that only sells to enterprise? Or do you have SMB in there? Are we talking about a very technical product? Or is it a B2C project management software, right? That is additional context that we need to keep in mind as candidates to honestly keep it real with ourselves of where we are going to thrive. We spend countless hours of our lives at work. We need to make sure that when we're renting our time to these organizations, that the fit is there. And those are the 3 dimensions for the candidate. From the hiring manager, I love that as CS leaders and go-to-market leaders, we talk about how it's much more efficient to grow and retain your existing customers than to get new ones. But how many of us are actually applying that to talent? We're not. But it's the same concept. It is much more efficient to grow and retain your existing folks than to go and hire new talent. But the lens in which we're hiring that talent matters in terms of how successful that talent is going to be internally. So yes, create the great job description, have an amazing title, but understand the context in which you are bringing these new folks into your organization. Again, looking at the 3 dimensions, once you've got the competencies and the skills outlined, keep it real about where you are in your CS maturity curve, right? And identify folks that can fit, or I like to say, and I know a lot of people say this, add to that. And then from a company's perspective, do you understand your true company culture and the values? And I don't mean the stuff that you post online. I mean the day-to-day, who gets promoted and why, who gets recognized and why. That is what culture really is. It's not the things that we post on the wall and look at once a year. And so, again, from the hiring manager perspective, have to keep it real there too. And so my chapter gives you the framework called the FIT framework that allows you to do that.
Thank you. For the first decade of my career, my growth was limited. It was limited to what I could learn from a book or what I would learn in my own experiences, learning from a lot of mistakes along the way. And truly, I feel like for many years, I Googled my way through my jobs. Of somebody would give me a job and I would literally Google, how do I do this? And I would figure it out myself. But what that meant was that my growth was really limited to my own experiences. When I transitioned into customer success, it opened up a whole new world to me. I'm sure many of you guys know, but this community is incredibly special. First half of my career, I was in sales and marketing, where you would never go to a competitor or somebody that was doing the same job as you and be like, hey, how did you get so good? Tell me about this. In customer success, it's very normal for us to share with each other what's working, what's not working, the lessons that we've learned along the way. My life completely changed. I changed. It changed me as a person when I started to lean into the CS community. I started joining conferences. I started doing in-person and virtual networking and meetups. But most importantly, I really started to invest in the relationships with people, in both what I was providing to them and how I was contributing, but also asking them questions and learning from them. So again, that learning was no longer limited to my experiences, but it really broadened what I could gain from this entire community. So in doing so, I wasn't just investing in others, which I was. I absolutely was mentoring and coaching and helping people along the way and lifting other people up through my own experiences. But I also was really investing in myself and taking the time to not only have those meaningful relationships, but also to recognize that I didn't have to have all the answers. It was okay. It wasn't a sign of weakness as a leader if I asked for help or if I asked questions and said, hey, I'm trying something out new here. Have you done this before? And finding those people. And I was really surprised by how many people were like, yes, here's my Calendly link. Here, let's meet up for coffee, whatever it was. And that they were willing to share what was working for them. Suddenly, my growth was no longer limited anymore. It was exponential. I wrote this section because community is the most underutilized accelerator in customer success. For me, it unlocked mentorship, opportunities, friendships. It gave me a sense of belonging. I didn't even know what I was missing. It expanded impact that for me really gave me a lot of fulfillment, because now the impact that I was having wasn't limited to my own customers or my team that I was leading, but I was able to have a much larger impact on the community, and that felt really good. It gave me a truer sense of purpose for myself. But here's why this matters. Over 70% of jobs are found through networking. I'm gonna say that again. Over 70% of jobs are found through networking. And in CS, a field that is literally built on relationships, whether we like it or not, community isn't just helpful, it is essential. Yet so many people wait to engage until they need something versus building those connections consistently over time. In fact, during the almost 2-year process of writing this book, I myself went through a job search. I went through a layoff, and I'm gonna be super real with you guys. This job market sucks. It is really, really, really hard when you go through a layoff and you are trying to navigate all of that. And when I first started, even though we were literally writing a book on this, I went back to what I knew, and I was applying to a lot of jobs, and I was getting a lot of rejection. And mentally, that took a toll on me, because every single day I would wake up, I still had all the habits that I had previously from working. I wasn't checking Slack anymore, but I was checking my email, and I was immediately just throughout the day seeing those rejections rolling in because I was applying to a lot of jobs. And I tried everything from optimizing my resume and getting advice on these different things. And then I flipped the script and was like, what am I doing? I'm literally writing about, at this point I had already written my section all about community networking and branding. And so I flipped the script and started to really tap into my network, continued to build my presence, be vulnerable. I started, instead of just sharing what I knew about customer success, I started sharing about my own job search experience and being loud about it, not hiding the fact that I went through a layoff. I started to be real about the experience that I was going through and sharing what was working for me, what wasn't working for me. all of a sudden I had an army of people that were helping me. I had people that were literally texting me or messaging me on LinkedIn saying, hey, did you see this job opportunity? Or hey, would this be a good fit for you? I know so-and-so at the company, can I refer you? I had people that were coming together to help me through the job search. And what I found in the end, and this may not be everybody's experience, but it was my experience, was that the final companies that I was between when I found my current role, not a single one of them had a job posted. They were all going through backdoor referrals and different things where had I not been engaging with the community, I wouldn't even know that these jobs existed. So I want to share with you guys a little bit about kind of what you're going to gain from my section. So for the candidates, don't wait until you're job searching. Build your presence now, contribute, ask questions, and share your voice. Your career growth will be multiplied when it's not just dependent on you taking ownership. And then for hiring managers, your next great hire is probably already in the community. So put yourself where great candidates and great people are. Things like sponsoring events, joining discussions, building your brand. You create visibility and attract aligned, motivated talent and become a desirable place to work. For everyone, community isn't transactional. It's the bridge that's going to unlock opportunity. My hope's that you guys leave with one simple reminder: don't limit your growth to your own bubble. Lean into other people, ask questions, learn and grow from others, and kind of help lift up the entire field of customer success. And speaking of growth, on to you.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I wrote the section on training, and I want to tell you a little story. Before I founded the Success League, I was a VP of Customer Success a few times, and a few companies back, I worked for a company that didn't invest in training, and I was leading a pretty decent-sized team. I had about 11 managers and directors who reported to me, and I had zero budget to train them with. And our team was a little ragtag, and we needed to improve our performance. And so I had to get very creative. Who here has had to get creative with training before? Oh, surprise, surprise. So I started a book club. And I figured, well, I can pay for 12 books that we can all sit around and read. And I thought that was a great idea. I read a lot. I love learning. So I was like, oh, I'll get books for my team. It'll be great. And I started that, and I brought my management team together, and I'm like, we're going to do a book club. And I got a bunch of groans and a bunch of people that were like, I am so busy, Kristen, I don't have time to read. Like, how am I supposed to do this? And I said, well, it's not optional, so you will be reading, and I will make it more pleasant by doing it at happy hour on Friday so that we can all have adult beverages while we do that. So that is what we did. And after about 3 or 4 months of some moaning and groaning, decreasing over time, it actually ultimately became the favorite part of what we did as a leadership team, because we were continually learning and we were doing it together. We started with one of my favorite books called The 12 Elements of Great Managing, and we moved on to books on everything from agile to sales to, how do you structure a team, to politics. We talked about all of it. And these managers grew. They grew, and they went off to companies like Google and Facebook. And it was so rewarding for me as a leader to see my team develop their leadership skills and go off and do these great things, all because of a simple book club, which was my way of training with almost no budget. And so I share that with you because I want to emphasize the importance of training whether or not you have a budget. And for those of you who are not leaders today, who are maybe employees of your company who aren't receiving training, it's up to you to find these ways to learn without a huge budget. And so that's part of what my chapter is about. I also provide a lot of structure on how to set things up. If for those of you who came to my session today, some of what I talked about in my session is what I write about in the book. And I certainly tell more of the story about book club because it's kind of a fun story. But I want to emphasize, why would you care about training? Well, what I can say is you can do all of the things these ladies talked about beautifully and perfectly. And if you don't train your team, you will start to lose them. And you will have wasted a lot of time and effort and energy and money getting the perfect people only to have them walk away or fail. And that's no good. So training should not be an afterthought. I wish every single leader in here had a full budget to do all the training you wanted to do. But I try to be very realistic in my section and talk about what might be true. And if you've got a great budget, I talk about what can be true for you. Employee development is proven to increase performance by 25%. That's huge. Think about if your team was 25% better than where they are today. That's a massive change. And so I hope that you'll think about the chapter. I know we're kind of getting close to the end, so I'm going to skip a few things I was going to say, but I do want to leave you with two things. First, if you're an employee and you're sitting here and you're thinking, I don't have time, I don't have money, I want to encourage you to own your education. It's the most important thing you've got. You can be educated. There are so many resources that are free or low cost, and you can improve your career in customer success. And so take ownership of that, whether or not your employer takes ownership of it. If you are a manager, what I want to leave you with is not only is it your responsibility to educate yourself, it's your responsibility to educate your team. And if you have to get scrappy and start a book club, do it. And if you have a way to go and ask your leadership team for some budget because you know how important this is, do it. Because that's going to improve not only your team's careers, but yours. So with that, we'll wrap it up.
Thank you so much, everyone. I started my first customer success role 8 years ago with a client who's actually in this room today, and immediately fell in love with the roles and the nuances and how complicated this function is. And I hope that through this book, all of us have just made it a little bit easier to find a job, to hire, to just scale your team, grow, train, and I hope it's a little bit easier. We're really proud of what we've created, and I hope it's useful. Thank you so much. We'll be outside. Come hang out with us. Thank you.